Well, good morning, everyone. We're glad that you're here with us today. It's a great day to worship the Lord. As we get started this morning, I just want to remind you to sign your names in the whatever color this is registry, so that we can keep track of who is coming and minister to you better. So as we begin, let's go ahead and stand, rise together, lift our hearts together as we thank Him for all that He has done in our lives. What has God done for us? Only the greatest thing we could ever need and want. Let's sing about it. Cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus fled and died for me. I see His wounds, His hands, His feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid Him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. The
As we come to our prayer time this morning, we want to start by just telling you about how yesterday's event went. The Bounce House Bonanza in our parking lot. We had an awesome turnout yesterday. We had families from our own church. We had families from the neighborhood. We had people who were just driving by with their kids in the car who saw the sign that said free event, and the kids said, "Mom, Dad, we got to stop. And so they did. And they came. And even better, we had lots of helpers. Some of you were helpers yesterday, offering smiles and hospitality, helping kids get in and out of the bounce houses, having a good time. And even more, many of our helpers stayed after their shift, and they talked to the families who came. We heard lots of different ways that they heard about us, the reasons they came. I had families say to me, "Thank you so much. This is such a great event, and we especially appreciate that it's free." Just like God's gift of grace is free. See, there's a strategy involved. We could charge admission, but God doesn't. The admission's already been paid, as we just sang about in that song. I know many of you were able to help yesterday, but I know some of you weren't able to help yesterday, but I know some of you said you'd pray. So if you prayed at any time for the Bounce House Bonanza when you knew it was coming up, or you prayed yesterday, would you just lift a hand? Look around the room. Yesterday's event happened and was successful, not just because of us, all of us who could be there yesterday, but because of all the prayers that laid the groundwork for that event. That's answered prayer. That's another reason to praise God. And so these folks heard about our church. They heard about opportunities for they and their kids to come back. We look forward to seeing them again and engaging them. So continue to pray for all those people, for all those families, for the upcoming opportunities. We'll have some pictures. Are they already on Facebook? We've got pictures on Facebook if you weren't able to be here, where you can go to our Facebook page and see what happened. It was a great time. As we turn them to concerns or have some to lift up for you, Ken Wiley, we've been asked to pray for his comfort and his improved health. We've been asked to pray for Janet Purdy's daughter, Linda Neese, who's having some kidney problems, and for her family. We want to continue to pray for students and educators as school begins, college begins. I understand somebody told me today that Liberty Benton begins tomorrow, Lincoln View begins tomorrow, some other schools in the area begin tomorrow or this week coming up. So pray for them. Our niece is starting at University of Findlay tomorrow. So pray for all those college students as they begin. We also would like you to pray for the Irma Beal family. Irma passed away in Texas where she was living with her relatives. There'll be a memorial service sometime later here in Findlay to remember her life. But you can pray for that family nonetheless. Let's go to God in prayer. Gracious and merciful God, we give you thanks for who you are and for the gift of free grace that you offer us. You have given us Christ, who's loved us enough, even before we knew him, even before we could call on his name, to lay down his life for us, to invite us and welcome us into your family and into relationship with you. Even when we have known him and we've decided to wander away, still you've sought us out, and when we've come back, you've welcomed us with open arms, even when we didn't deserve it. Thank you, God, for that gift of grace and mercy. Thank you for people in our lives who extend your love and hospitality to us all the time. Some who we know we can get it from, and others who surprise us. And in so doing, reveal your presence and your love to us. We thank you even for those times when we reach out to a stranger and extend hospitality and are blessed because we've discovered that we've entertained an angel. Thank you for our Bounce House event yesterday and for the opportunities we had to begin relationships with our neighbors, with families in our community who maybe knew about this place because of the building, but got to meet your people. The people who are St. Andrew's United Methodist Church and who experience love and acceptance. Help us to continue to offer that kind of grace and hospitality to others. We pray today for these that we've named, for Ken and Linda, for students and educators who are resuming school, and for Irma's family. Pour out your Spirit on all these and bring comfort, hope, bring wisdom, and strength. Above all, bring your peace. We thank you, God, for this time when we can worship as your people. Speak to us and help us to hear your call to serve and to love others as you love us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Come just as you are. Hear the Spirit's call. Come just as you are. Come and see. Come receive. Come and live forever. Life everlasting and strength for today. Taste the living water and never thirst again. Come just as you are. Hear the Spirit's call. Come just as you are. Come and see, Christ the King. Come and live forever. Life everlasting and strength for today. Taste the living water and never thirst again. Come just as you are. Hear the Spirit call. Come just as you are. Come receive Christ the King. Come and live forevermore.
Good morning. I got to meet a lot of you guys last week, but for those of you I haven't met yet, I am Zach, the new coordinator of the ministries. And so today we have two scriptures. The first one is Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 to 10. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre. He sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent and bowed down. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet, and rest yourselves on the tree." Let me bring a little red that you may refresh yourself. And after that, may you pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you have said. And Abraham hastened to Sarah and said, make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes. Abraham ran to the herd and took the calf, tender and good, and gave it to his servant, who hastened to prepare. He took curds and milk and the calf that he prepared and set them before them. He stood by them under the tree while they ate. He said to them, where's your wife Sarah? And he said, there, in the tent. Then one said, I will surely return to you in due season, but your wife Sarah shall have a son. The second scripture is Hebrews chapter 13, verse 1 and 2. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers. For by doing so, that some have entertained angels without knowing.
Now, Bishop would come join me down front for a moment. And as we're coming down, I just want to let all the parents know that September 9th will be our children's Christian education kickoff. So classes start then, and you'll more information coming in the center as I get closer. All right, good morning. Today we're talking all about hospitality. It's a really long word. And for those of you who are readers, I printed this out because there's a word in the word hospitality that kind of tells us what hospitality is all about. Do you see another smaller word inside hospitality? Okay, well, I will show you if I can underline it. I've got that great plan here. And it's the word hospital. Now, I'm sure you've probably heard about hospitals lately. I haven't spent much time in one. But a hospital is a place that cares for people. And so hospitality is kind of the same thing. It's all about caring for other people. So you're thinking, Miss Chris, okay, that's nice, but how do I do hospitality? Well, I wanted to send you a little something that you can use. It's called a hospitality chart. And on here are some ways that you can show hospitality when you have some visit your house with a friend, relative. And as you do each one of these things, you go ahead and give yourself a little sticker to make sure that you keep track and it can give you some good ideas. So here are some of the ideas. Somebody could come to your house, get them a drink. That's easy, right? You could do that. Here's another one. You can let your friends pick the activities that you play. So when you have a friend over, you can pick what you do. And another one is share your favorite things. So when you have a guest over, you can share your toys with them. That's a way of showing hospitality. Now notice these things are all about others. How you can serve others, help others. Because that's what hospitality is all about. It's about caring for others. Not caring for ourselves, but putting others first. So I'll give you one of those before you leave. But one thing I wanted to mention is that sometimes your church uses the term radical hospitality. Now it's like taking hospitality to the next level. So it would be a very big thing for hospitality if you open the door for someone. That's really nice. But if you wanted to practice radical hospitality, you would open the door for them and you say, kind of greeting them, like, oh, I'm glad you're here. It's good to see you. Or you look great today. So it's taking hospitality and taking it up a notch. Radical hospitality. All right, let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the children here today. And help us to go out into our week practicing hospitality and kicking it up a notch and practicing radical hospitality and showing others how much you care about them. Because as we do this, God shows us how great you care for us. I just thank you for the beautiful weather and watch over us as we go into our week, as we go back to school, and help us be radically hospitable to those around us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Come take a chart and pass it. I just want to
say thank you to the Bounce Bonanza. I'm not sure who had more fun, the adults or the kids, because every time I went around, everybody was smiling. We had an amazing afternoon, and we were already talking about next year, so you can plan on it, because I know next year will be even better than this year. Will you join me in prayer? God, we are so grateful for the way that you are always working in our lives. We're grateful that you have offered us an example of hospitality, and that you continue to reveal yourself over and over again. I pray that as we continue to contemplate the scripture, that you would help us to make application in our life. And I pray that you would be revealed through my words, and in spite of them, that you might be heard. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I'd like you to imagine this scene for a moment in your mind. It's not going to be on the screen. You and your family, who include small children, arrive at the home of a new friend who has invited
you for dinner. You are especially excited about this invitation because someone invited you with your small children to their home for dinner, right? Who does that? As you stand on the porch ready to knock, you take a deep breath and offer a quick prayer to heaven. Lord, please help my kids not to destroy their home. And as your friend opens the door, their 3 children, who are a few years older, are standing there with them. And you barely get in the door, and their kids herd your kids up the stairs, and they go up there to play. And as they're playing, you are engaged in adult conversation with your friends. And all the while, you hear upstairs laughing and giggling and all kinds of noises that indicate that they're having a great time. There's no whining, no meltdowns, no sounds of things being broken, just serenity in the perfect visit. And as you make your way home, that is exactly how you feel. This is a real description, retold in my words, that was given to me of an event that happened in the lives of the Madisons. And Tina told me the story. And since they had that experience, they have decided as a family that that is the way that they want to offer hospitality to people who come to their home, especially people that had small children, because they were so impacted by that, they wanted others to feel the same way that they did. It wouldn't take long if I started asking all of you stories about places where you received radical hospitality. It could be a friend's home. It could be a business. Places where they went above and beyond and practically rolled out the red carpet for you as you came to visit. When I lived in Bowling Green, I had the most amazing mechanic. You heard me right, mechanic. He and his staff provided the best hospitality I've ever experienced in a business. And I don't just mean auto repair business, I mean any business. They always made me feel like my presence in their building was the most important thing they had to do that day, was engaging with me. And when I was car shopping for a new-to-me car, you know, that used kind, they said that I could bring a car that I was interested in to them, and they would look at it free of charge. And this was like 3 or 4 cars that I took to them. And I said to the owner, you can't expect me not to pay you for the time that you put into looking at that car to see if it's a good vehicle. And he said, no, we want to be the mechanics that work on that car. And we want you to purchase the best car for us to work on. And so we're not going to charge you for that. I mean, that, in my book, that is beyond courteous. And every time I went there, they were always kind. When Jeff and I lived in Bryan, we had a favorite restaurant that we went to at least once a week. Yeah, there were sometimes it was twice, or I don't think it was quite free, but maybe. The staff at that restaurant knew us by name. They knew if we ordered our regular item, what we didn't want on it or how we wanted it changed without us even asking. And in those weeks where we were feeling indecisive because we wanted to try something new but we weren't sure what we wanted to try, they were patient with us. They didn't mind. They always made us feel welcome, and they always engaged us in conversation. And we went back there week after week after week because they knew us and we loved their food. Hospitality, or amazing hospitality, draws us back to a person, a place, or even a church. So I want us to think for a minute about the different types of hospitality that we offer in this example that I'm going to give to you with some people that I've already talked to. So don't worry, I won't do this to just anybody. Hi, I don't think I've met you before. You must be new here. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Oh, hey, Judy. How are you? It's so good to see you. Every week we get to talk, and it's just so amazing. How are the grandkids? They're doing great. Are they? What are the activities they're doing these days? Well, they're busy then. Yeah, we hope they're doing something good. Yeah, that's awesome. You guys travel this summer anywhere? Yeah. San Francisco. Oh, I bet that's going to be amazing. Yeah, that's great. I see you here every week, and it's always so good to talk with you and get caught up on your lives. Oh, they're wonderful. Except Hannah is so busy. I can't hardly keep up with her. She's just so busy. It's crazy. It's crazy. He's in 9th grade, and he had the greatest week this week. We are just so proud of him. Yeah, it's amazing. So good to see you, Judy. Yeah. Okay, so that was 2 very different examples, right? How'd that feel, Jack? Like you weren't very important. And you hate it? I hate that too. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to pick on you without asking you first, right? So don't get nervous about that. But y'all, we laughed about that, but every church I've served, I've seen that very thing happen, including St. Andrews, where you go and you engage somebody and you give them 10, 15, 30 seconds, and then you move on and you give a majority of the time to the person that you know, because that's our comfort zone, right? That's where we feel comfortable, and approaching someone we don't know leaves us a little edgy sometimes, and we're nervous about that. But we really need to rethink who we're offering our best hospitality to. Because most often, it's our closest friends or the people that we know the best that we are offering our best hospitality. But in reality, we should be offering our best hospitality, the ones that we would offer to our dearest friends, to our guests. And to our dearest friends or person that we talk to every week in the pew, we should just give a passing hello. Because the reality is that they'll get it if we just give them a passing hello. But the person who's a guest might feel really uncomfortable, like Jack did with that example. And if it's someone that we know well, we can pick up the phone and call them anytime, right? But if it's a guest first time here, we only get one chance to give them good hospitality on their first visit. After that, they may or may not come back. In church, we should never have people that walk away and say, "No one talked to me on Sunday." And that happens. Not so much here, I think, at St. Andrews, but I know it happens in lots of churches around our country. And if that would happen, it means that we've missed the calling that we received from God. And you're saying, calling? We have a calling when it comes to hospitality? We sure do. And it was exemplified in the example that we heard about Abraham this morning. So in our Old Testament verses that we heard Zach read this morning from Genesis, Abraham totally went out of his way for strangers. He didn't know them. He looked at them in the distance and he was like, I've never met these guys before. And he's just hanging out in the entrance and he sees them in the hottest part of the day. Think about that, right? In the hottest part of the day when the sun's beating down and you're glistening or sweating, depending on if you're male or female, right? And it's the hottest part of the day, and Abraham runs over to meet these guys. And he bows down before them, and he says, please find favor with me and allow me to offer you shelter, food, and a place to rest. And these guys look at each other, and they're like, well, that sounds pretty good. Go ahead and do what you said. So Abraham goes back in the tent where Sarah is, and he tells his wife, you know that bread that I tell you all the time is really good, and you always tell me that it's really hard to make? Well, you need to make up 3 of those because I just invited some guests into our house. And then he goes out to his flocks and he finds the best calf. And he takes it to his servant and he says, as quickly as you can, prepare this in the way that we always say will do for the best guest. I mean, he does not know these dudes. He's never met them in his life. And he's rolling out the red carpet for him. He is offering him the very best. He doesn't hold anything back. He doesn't say, oh, Sarah, make that one that's really easy, that's pretty good. And he doesn't go and pick out the 5th best calf. He gives them the very best. And did you hear in the reading that he doesn't sit there and eat with them? He sits back and he's like, eat all you want. I want you to have the best that I have. You know, we can't tell from the reading either if Abraham, when or if he figured out that this was God. But we do know that the culture of that day was to offer the best hospitality. Because in that day and age, they were much more interdependent on one another. So if someone was coming, you offer them the best because it might be in the next year or 2 that you're traveling and you have to seek hospitality with them. And if you offered them mediocre hospitality, chances are, well, they're going to offer you mediocre. But if you offer your best, then they're going to offer their best. And that interdependence is something that we would have a really hard time understanding, right? Because we live in a very independent culture, even that's filled with fear and uncertainty. We would never think of sitting on our porch and we see somebody walking by that we would say, hey, get over here, I'll give you the best that I got. We would think, oh my gosh, that person might be casing our house, right? They come back and they might steal my best china and the jewelry that I have upstairs and the nice artwork that I have on the wall. They might hurt a family member or me. And so we view strangers with suspect because we've heard too many stories. And unfortunately, this mindset about the suspicion of strangers comes into our life together as a church. We are sometimes unsure of the stranger in our midst. Some of you know that Jeff and I just got back from vacation. And for us, when we're on vacation, we go to worship. We find a church somewhere and we go. And not only because it's great material for a sermon, but more than that, that we know that we need to be in worship. That's the primary reason. So when we were on vacation recently, we went to a church service where we got that look. Do you know that look? The look of, oh, you're new here. I've never seen you before, and I should talk to you, but you're kind of scary, and you have that toddler, and that makes me even more scary. And I know that I should talk to you, but I can't do it. Those are the looks we got. It's a true story that happened a couple weeks ago. But when we read in the Old Testament the rest of the story that we heard about Abraham,
we discovered that this amazing hospitality that they offered ended up being a blessing that they could not imagine or believe. Because if you read just a couple more verses before we stop, and the strangers are saying, this is what's going to happen to you next. They say, you're going to have a son. And Sarah is in the doorway, and she's like, are you kidding me? And she starts laughing at what they say. Because how is it that in their old age, they're going to bear a child? I mean, this is what they've been praying for, what they've been begging God for, what they had longed for. And there's no way in their old age that was going to happen. And so I think Sarah laughs in disbelief and kind of with that attitude of, yeah, it's way too late for that. That train left a long time ago. But in spite of her desire, I'm sure, to still have a child, she could not conceive in her mind how that might happen. And then paired with that Old Testament text is the New Testament text from Hebrews, where we hear about the possibility that we have of entertaining angels when we offer hospitality to people. Can you imagine? I mean, imagine for just a minute what it would be like to be in the presence of a celestial being, right? Who's been with God, who's blessed by God, who serves God. Well, now wait a minute. If we think about this, that could be any of us or any one of us, because God is with each of us all the time. God blesses us on a regular basis, and we do serve God. And so offering hospitality to everyone means that we are entertaining a child of God, another form of an angel, right? In the New Testament, we also discover in the Gospel of Matthew that Jesus addresses hospitality when he tells the parable of the judgment of the nations. And he says, those who fed, gave drink, welcomed the stranger, clothed, cared for, visited, will be welcomed as the righteous. But those who did not do those things will be punished. So radical hospitality is a biblical mandate. It's not an option. It's something that we are told is part of what we need to do as Christians and as a church. We see repeatedly in Scripture that this is our task to offer. And it means offering our very best. It means giving all that we have, making the best bread, offering the tender calf, rolling out the red carpet. I love that we already have red carpet. We've got it out already. It means not being intimidated by the stranger, but welcoming them as our dearest and oldest friends. Imagine how it would feel if every time we had a stranger or guest that came into here, we would think, I'm entertaining an angel. We would be acting like Abraham. Last year we had a whole series that we talked about hospitality and the importance of that. And we taught you all a process that we wanted to kind of go over again and be reminded of so that we are all on the same page and offering the same hospitality. And we called that the 5-10 link. Are y'all remembering some of that 5-10 link that we talked about? So let's just do a little refresher. When the 5-10 link, each of those talks about something that helps us remember how we offer amazing hospitality. The 5 is time. The 5 minutes before the worship starts and after worship is over, we don't engage the people that we normally talk to on Sunday morning. We take the time to recognize if there's a guest in the vicinity that we talk to. And you know, I shared with the early service too that in our time here, I've talked at different points to people in the congregation about somebody else, and I've heard people say, oh, I don't know that person.
So I would encourage you, if there's someone that doesn't normally sit by you and you haven't had a chance to get to know them, take 5 minutes before worship or after worship to cross the sanctuary. I know. Cross the sanctuary and get to know that person who also worships with you. The 10 that we talked about is the idea of space. That anytime you're in the building, you're responsible for 10 feet around you, okay? And sometimes that's hard to imagine, like what is 10 feet? So this rope is actually 10 feet, and I'm going to let Dave help me out. He's going to hold that end. And if you look at this, it's about 3 or 4 pews is 10 feet. And if all of us worry about that 10 feet circumference around them, then everybody in the sanctuary would always be covered. Because even with the way we're sitting now, people would still be covered by all that 10 feet. I won't climb over you to make the rest of the circumference. I think people will get it. Thank you, Dave. So we need to make sure, and it's not just on Sunday morning. If you're in the building anytime during the week, that 10 feet, that hospitality is still important for all of us to offer. So then the link part is connecting them to someone that might have a similar hobby or interest, so that when they leave, they feel like they not only met one person, but they met someone else that they really can connect with and have a good conversation with. And so if you hear that that person is a drummer, right, then you would connect them to Chuck, because you know that Chuck is our drummer, and they could have a great conversation about drumming, where if I tried to talk to them about that, it would be obvious that I didn't know what I was talking about, right? So then they would feel like they knew multiple people and had friends in our church. There's an individual in our congregation who is today very active in the leadership of our church. But they shared with me that years ago, when they first came to the church, they came because they were invited by their neighbor. And at that first visit that they were here, no one talked to them. And lots has changed by now, that I don't think that happens as often. And they kept coming because of that connection with their neighbor. But what if someone came that didn't have that connection and no one talked to them? In a previous church that we served, we were working with the congregation on this whole issue of hospitality. And there was a couple that came to church, and they were offered amazing hospitality. There was an appropriate engagement with different people, and when the service was over, someone took them on a tour of the church. And they introduced them to other people, and so they kept coming, that couple kept coming back to church. And they quickly got involved in the church, and the wife got involved in a small group that I was leading, and she and I became good friends. And we still text prayer requests back and forth to one another because of that relationship that we formed. If that church had not done radical hospitality, they might not have stayed. And then I might not have this prayer partner, even though we're not in the same place. And so I received a blessing. And that's what happens when we offer radical hospitality to people that come, that even though other people were the ones that offered radical hospitality, I was blessed by that. And the whole church was blessed by that, because they became involved and offered their gifts and talents to the church. And so it's important for all of us to offer this great hospitality. And so my encouragement to you all is, let's be Abrahams and offer the best that we have. And I would even encourage you to outdo one another in hospitality. Now, what I don't mean by that is if someone's talking to someone, don't go and push them out of the way and try and outdo the hospitality. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, if you see someone offering hospitality before the service, then after the service is over, it's your turn to go and approach them. Offer them a tour of the church. They might be like me. I'm a church geek. I love to tour churches and go and see it. That church that we went to that nobody really engaged us and talked to us, we did a self-tour because we waited around for somebody to offer it, but nobody did. And so we just wandered around this church. It was beautiful. And while you're giving them a tour. You can introduce them to other people, make those connections for them so that they can feel like they've been in a place where they've been valued. Now, I will caution you on one thing. I had a friend who went to a church, and someone literally, well, the pastor, chased him down in the parking lot because he didn't have a chance to meet him, and it kind of freaked him out. So that might be going a little bit too far with the radical hospitality. You don't have to chase them down. We can just trust in one another that we're going to do that. So it's important for us, and it's a biblical mandate, that we offer our guests and our strangers the same kind of hospitality that we appreciate from our friends, the stores with great customer service, and other churches that you all have visited where you felt like you were the long-lost friend that showed up on that morning. May we all be modern-day Abrahams and offer that radical hospitality. Amen. As we move into our offering time, I wanted to encourage you all to see an announcement that's in the back of the messenger. There it talks about a service project that our outreach team is working on. And let me explain a little bit about this in case everybody doesn't know the history. St. Andrews has been involved in a feeding ministry that's especially for the schools, that on Fridays they go in, they package a bag up, and they give it to kids who have food insecurities in our community. And we do that at Whittier Elementary. And the teachers have been so impressed at the way that we've loved on the kids in that school. And the other schools have that happening too, but other organizations have adopted those schools. We just ended up with Whittier. And so the outreach team said, hey, what would it mean for us to continue that, but bless the teachers in the process? And I don't know about you all, but I've heard lots of stories recently about teachers that spend their own money for supplies for their classroom. And we know that teachers don't make a lot of money. You know, their salaries are not huge, and they're dipping into their own pocket to make sure that that kid who lost their pencil has one, or who loves to sharpen it so much that went through all their pencils in the first week and a half, right? We want to make sure that they don't have to keep dipping into their pocket. And so we checked with the school and said, what are some items that we can use that can bring that will bless them? And so we're asking you to look at that list and pick up one or two things. And in our Crawford Street entrance, there's this awesome decorated bus out of a box. Thanks, Guy. And so you can deposit those items in that little bus box. And then on a Wednesday night, the people that are here are going to put them in these nice packages that we'll deliver to the schools at near like the middle or the end of September to replenish the supplies that they need. So we would love for you to offer in that way. In our offering time, we're not only giving the financial things, we're giving the gifts and the talents that God has given us. So let's pray as we go into that time. God, we're so grateful for the way that you have blessed us abundantly and for the opportunity that we have to bless others. I pray that you would guide the leadership of this church to use the resources that we have in a way that will help others understand your love and grace. This we pray in the name of Christ. Amen. make sure that you know before you leave this morning, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be hosting a special concert called Children of the World, and it will be a choir that consists of kids from about 5 or 6 different countries. They will give an amazing concert with more energy than I have, I tell you what. They will be singing and dancing and playing drums, and I know this will be an event that none of us wants to miss. And it's a great opportunity for us to invite our neighbors and our friends, a chance for them to come and be blessed by that, and then we can bless them as well. We are still looking for a couple of host families that would allow the 2 kids to come and stay at your house overnight. If you can accommodate that, please see Tina Madison. She is lining all of that up. And it's a great opportunity to be blessed, to learn more about the countries where these kids come from. I don't think we're going to be feeding them at all. We're just going to be hosting them overnight. So if you have questions or you're curious, Tina can answer all of those questions. Today is a community dinner over in our annex. And so we encourage you to go over, enjoy lunch, get to know someone who's receiving, that's our guest today at that meal, and spend some time getting to know them. And also, we don't always say this enough, and so I just wanted to say this this morning to everyone that's here. Part of being engaged in a community of a church means that we do more than just worship on Sunday morning. It means that we get involved and we serve and we do things to glorify God in other ways. If God's Spirit has been tugging at you to get involved, but you're just not sure how to do that, any staff member can help you to figure out where God is calling you. And we also promise that if you start something and you realize it's not the best thing for you, you don't have to do it forever. That we will find another place that you can serve that is in the best wheelhouse that you offer in your gifts. So please just ask us, and we would love to help you. As you go from this place, know first of all that you are loved, but also go and offer amazing hospitality. Be Abraham in our modern day and offer the red carpet treatment to whoever you meet. Go in peace. Amen.